believe this ball game at Shea.
Oh, brother.
3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Glinchey staring in, has his sign. A 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura. Ventura with a grand slam. They're mobbing him before he can get to second base. The Mets have won the ball game. Ventura.
Lopez wants it away.
And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
How is New York going to get out of this guy? Their captain, David Wright. He's had the bad back. He's got spinal stenosis. Played less than 40 games in the regular season. It's a cold night. High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
It'll be a problem on and off the rest of the season. Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year from Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner!
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
And I am joined by former Mets pitcher, former big leaguer, Bill Pulsifer. Bill, how are you today?
I'm good, Casey. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for asking. So,
Yes, sir.
we have a lot to dive into since the last time we spoke on episode 3. Well, like we mentioned from the ending of episode 3, there's never really a dull day, I feel like, in Metsville. There's always just something happening. Feels like that's been it forever.
Yeah, that's the story of the organization, right? Always something going on.
Yeah. So without any further ado, let's just dive right into it. So, the Mets made all their moves. They waved the white flag. However, they're playing pretty well. They put some wins together. They had a 4-game winning streak. They won 6 out of 7. Now, granted, Pirates, Cardinals, not the best teams in the National League. Braves, obviously are the best team in the league, but they're playing better. There's a different vibe. I don't know how much that is the opposition, the opponent, or something else. Let me get your thoughts on that first before we get into the main thing here.
Yeah, well, obviously, like we talked about a little bit last week, there's definitely not going to be any tanking involved, and those guys are professionals, and they want to win baseball games. As far as the opposition, you can only play against the teams that you're playing against, so you want to try to get those wins when you are playing the teams that you quote unquote should beat, but you still have to go out there and get 27 outs and score more runs than the other team in a Major League Baseball stadium. So it's never easy, but to see them taking care of business a little bit and playing well, hopefully gives some of the fans some interest in at least the very fact that they're not quitters and they're not going to just roll over and say, you know what, it's over and just mail it in and let's go play golf.
Yeah, a lot of talk early on right after the trade deadline was more of the tanking and that protected top 6 pick if they finish in the bottom 6 or they drop 10 spots for the first round draft pick like they did in 2023. Right. Right now, I feel like we could put that to bed. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. However, there's around 40 games to go, so you never know. However, I looked at the schedule. Now, whoever's watching this, whatever day, I can't tell you how many games the Mets are out of the third wild card spot. My guess, whoever's watching this, and thank you, of course, to tuning into the Shalo podcast here. They could be anywhere from 5 to 8, ballpark. But I looked up their schedule. Their last 20 games are all against teams ahead of them. So my point is, they could do some damage. Now, not saying they will, not saying they won't, but they can. They literally have the teams in front of them, all of the teams, like the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, who am I forgetting? Not the Cubs. A lot of the teams, all of them, the last 20. So they can do damage. Cincinnati, absolutely. Phillies, they're the last 20. So crazier things have happened. I feel like right now I don't really like the graphs. 2.5% chance of making the playoffs. Whatever. There's still a month and a half left. Screw the graphs and whoever makes them. You could go back to the 73 Mets, the 69 Mets. Even the 98, 99 Mets, they went on a tear. More so than 98 Mets that didn't make the playoffs, but they came close. What are your thoughts about that when you're part of a big league team? You've gone through a lot. You're on the roster the entire time. You were not traded. And you have an outside chance somehow of still the possibility of making the playoffs. And all teams ahead of you are the last 20 games. What goes through your mind? Are you, I never thought I'd say that there is a chance they make the playoffs.
Yeah, people wouldn't have thought that a couple of weeks ago. But as players in the clubhouse, all you want is that chance and that opportunity. And knowing that you have that chance and that opportunity mathematically, as well as having the teams in front of you that you need to beat coming up in games, obviously, if you have that chance, then you do have a chance. And people are going to do their damnedest to try to take that opportunity. Now, we all know that it's going to be a little bit difficult, and the numbers are kind of stacked against them a little bit. But as professional athletes, you have that feeling of, if I have a chance, then I'm going to go ahead and try to take that opportunity. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you're not, you're going to put your nose to the grindstone and work as hard as you possibly can and support your teammates and try to do the best that you possibly can, because there is a chance. And everybody, it's just like life. If you have a chance, then you still got an opportunity. So they still have an opportunity. All is not lost. And I think one way or the other, it can determine, and they're doing it a little bit now, determine the type of fight that you have in your team. And even if they come up a little bit short or they do get over the top, it gives them that opportunity to prove to themselves and to prove to the organization and prove to the fans that they're there to win and they're there to give the very best that they possibly can to the very end.
Yeah, the Mets have, basically two nicknames, the Amazins and the Miracle Mets. Why?
Right.
Because, they came from nowhere and defeated crazy odds to win what they had to win. And again, I agree with you. There's no guarantee that they're making the playoffs. And even if they did, who knows, but the Mets are, I feel like, and I'm not biased because I'm a Met fan. Tell me if you agree with this. X amount of years of Mets history, crazy things happen with this franchise. Granted, only 2 World Series, but I reverted back. I'll revert back to the '69 Mets. That crazy climb. What were they, like 9 or 11 games out behind the Cubs, and then the Black Cat, with Ron Santo at Shea against the Cubs, and it all changed. They ran off, I forget what, 30-10 or something, and the 73 Mets, same thing. And then you saw the comeback in the 86 Mets. So there's something about this franchise that just has that it. It hasn't translated to World Series wins. But what I'm saying, it's like talking about it and releasing it doesn't feel odd. It feels kind of natural. Maybe that's just the Met fan in me. How do you take that?
Yeah, well, you got to believe, right? I mean, that's exactly what it comes down to. And I, through all of this, still wanted to believe, because until you're mathematically eliminated, you're not eliminated. So you get on a run, you get on a hot streak, you try to do whatever you can do, try to hope that some of the other teams maybe, get into a slump and lose a few ball games to help you out. but it just keeps things lively and keeps things entertaining. And hopefully the fans are enjoying this little bit of a run that they're going through, and hopefully it'll correlate to people being in the stands and the players feeling the mood of the fans and the mood of themselves, knowing that they're winning some baseball games, and give it a shot. Well, you got nothing to lose. Either it happens or it doesn't. But I'd much rather be in the position of still being in there and still having that opportunity, as opposed to knowing, hey man, we're done. We're 30 games out with 29 to go, and there's no shot that this can happen. But as professional athletes, you're usually pretty optimistic and pretty hungry to believe in yourself. So I think that's probably still going on in that clubhouse. It's still going on in that stadium, that they still feel like, hey, we're not out of this, man. So let's go. Let's win a ball game today. We'll take care of one day at a time and one pitch at a time and try to win a ball game.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue to what I wanted to talk to you about next. Now, they've been on a little bit of a roll. I'm not going to say winning 6 of 7, 6 of 8. The Braves series obviously is a whole different animal, but they've been winning more. And the teams in front of them haven't been doing all that well. Mets haven't been picking up a lot of ground, but they've made themselves relevant in terms of in the hunt. So I think that's a perfect segue we talked about this a little bit on the other episode of the Shea Low podcast. Do you think it's a mix of the younger players who are hungry, going back to hell no, they ain't tanking? We see DJ Stewart, up to 6 home runs already, like 6 home runs and 13 at bats.
Love that guy's swing.
Yeah, power, for former number 1 draft pick. He's still 28, 29. Orioles got a pop. But the Ortegas, the Aruzas, and DJ Stewart, like a little hungry guys in the clubhouse now that have a lot to prove. The core is still there, and the rotation's a mess because you lost 2 aces. Some people have stepped up, some people haven't. But do you think it's maybe fully because of the younger guys, or a combination of the cores now? When I say core, you know who I'm talking about: Alonso, Lindor, McNeil, Nimmo. Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is it a mixture, or is it one or the other? Or, and this is actually we were going to get into this later, but it ties into one big thing. Is it because the speculation of, and we won't talk about who, some guys left, and people are speculating that bad chemistry in the clubhouse, now that it's gone, has led to a little bit of open, fresh air in the clubhouse and all that. So I know I said a lot there. I don't know which way you're thinking, but what is your take on that?
Well, I think obviously bringing up some guys and giving them everyday playing time, some guys that are probably still trying to prove themselves. These aren't necessarily your baby Mets, quote unquote, but these are some guys that have been around for a few years, that have been kind of toiling back and forth, or been through 5 or 6 different organizations. They're obviously very hungry to try to play well, to ingrain themselves, to possibly be on the ball club next year, or to advance their future with another ball club in the coming year. Those guys are obviously very hungry and probably willing to give everything they possibly can, as well as kind of follow in the lead of those guys that we talked about with Nimmo and Lindor and Pete and McNeil, like you said, the core guys, probably following their lead. Those, like I've talked in the past 2 episodes about, those are the guys that I say when there's guys that really care. Those are definitely a group of guys that really care. And I think it's probably a combination of both, some hungry guys, the core guys never losing their hunger, regardless of whether the team was winning or wasn't winning. And they're kind of coming together. What was going on in the clubhouse? Maybe there was some stuff going on. Obviously, we've heard some rumblings, but and clubhouse chemistry is a thing. But there's obviously been teams that have had not as great clubhouse chemistry that might have ended up winning, and then there's been teams that have had great clubhouse chemistry and didn't win anything. So who's to say exactly what happened when it comes down to the chemistry? But out on the field itself, obviously the guys that have came up that are playing well here recently are guys that are kind of, I want to say, quote unquote, journeymen up to this point, and are hungry to prove something, and they're doing well. And obviously the other guys, like the core guys, they were never going to quit. Those guys were never going to quit on the Mets,
Yeah,
never, or quit on themselves.
yeah. So yeah, I think combination
I believe
because
so.
the core group, and let's touch upon that for just a second because they're not going anywhere regardless of this year and how it ends. They'll be back in 2024. The production of the Nimos, the Lindors, the Alonsos, and the McNeils, I would call that the core, for the offense. They've all stepped up their games. Now, Met fans are negative by nature, and rightfully so. But that's a whole different animal. They're saying, oh, now they're doing it. Where were they, when they weren't out of it and not, 8 games under, 10 games under, whatever. I always revert back to this phrase. You always are at the end of the year what the back of your baseball card says you are. As you know, as a former player, uh, you know, ups and downs through a long year. You're going to have your slumps. You're going to have your peaks and valleys. Um, so people want to rip Lindor and Pete and Nimmo. Not so much Nimmo. He's been pretty consistent. For now picking it up as they have in August, all of them, because they're out of it. I don't put too much stock into that. I don't
No,
think you
me
do
neither.
either.
I don't either because the game is extremely hard, and there's no moment in time during the season where these guys were thinking, you know what, I'll just turn it off for a little bit
Yeah,
and then I'll turn it back on.
of
The
course.
baseball is not a light switch at all. You can't just turn it off and on. Now, obviously, you're going to get hot and you're going to get cold. Different circumstances throughout the year. Obviously, we believe Pete probably came back a little bit too early after getting smoked in the wrist. We got lucky the other day that he got hit in the hand again and was able to walk it off. But
Yep.
the game is hard, man. These guys are giving their best. They're trying. They're not trying to strike out. They're not trying to miss balls or make bad throws or what. It's a hard game. And like we said before about the guys that care so much, sometimes maybe they care a little bit too much and they try to do too much, and that's when they probably get into a little bit of a rut. And maybe if they can and maybe they are just relaxed a
I
little bit, maybe the pressure might be off just a little bit, and now maybe they're getting the chance to apply the pressure again by winning some baseball games.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I agree with that only because 2 of those 4, not saying that Nimmo and Lindor are not passionate and don't care. They definitely do. But you see more of a McNeil and Alonso who show their emotions more. Just they wear it on their sleeves. Alonso, we see, and McNeil all the time smash their helmets. We've seen Alonso
Right.
break his bat over his knee. That's another perfect segue. Lindor. Um, We'll keep it simple. I have stats with me.
Okay.
But before any stats, simple question, Bill. In your
Mm-hmm.
opinion, is Francisco Lindor as a Met, 2.5 years into the contract, 6.5 years or whatever, 7 years ago, is he underrated with everything?
He's not underrated in his batting average, and that's the only gripe that I'm going to have about him is with the money that he is being paid and what we were used to with guys that were getting these kinds of contracts. And obviously the money has grown over the last 10, 15, we'll even call it 20 years now, because I guess it was around 2003 that Alex Rodriguez was signing the first $250 million contract.
Yep.
We kind of expected the 300 plus batting average, the 330, the 335. Obviously, the guy comes to play every single day. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the different spikes and different glove every game, but you know what? I was a flashy player in 1995, and who knows what I would be in 2023 if I was a mid to late 20s baseball player in this day and age. So I'm not going to gripe on that too much because the guy does come to play every single day. Obviously, batting left-handed, I'd like to see him cut down on the strikeouts, maybe put the ball in play a little bit more, which I know he's capable of because I see him get plenty of base hits to left field. I think he does a lot of things well. Obviously, I would like to see the batting average come up. I'm not going to say underrated or overrated because there's a lot of people that tell you that batting average doesn't matter. I'll never be one of them.
Right.
But because hitting is contagious, so and the more pressure you put on on a pitcher, the more chances of him throwing bad pitches to get the next guy to be able to get a base hit. But he is a core player. He's going to be a core player for years. I know he gets picked on about leadership, this, that, and the other thing. Some people say he's a leader. Other people say he's not. People lead different ways. I will say this: he's on the top step of the dugout, right at the entrance of the netting, damn near the whole game when he's not in the batter's box or out playing defense. So I think that behind closed doors, he's probably looked at highly by his teammates, and I'm not going to say underrated because, like I said, I'm going to pick on the batting average a little bit and the strikeouts, but he definitely comes to play every single day, and he's part of a reason that makes the team better and not worse. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought up from the jump with Lindor. I think the money has a lot to do with how people and their opinions and how strong they are with him and how they make their opinion. Um, he's making $34 million a year, 10 years, $341 million. It's a lot of money. That's superstar money. That's not above average player money. You're going to be the best shortstop in the league money. And if you remember at the time, he actually, and I don't know why players do this, probably ego. He wanted to be the highest paid shortstop in the league. So he had the Mets put in an extra 100,000, I believe, to beat Fernando Tatis Jr., who had just signed 340 million. So I guess he got an extra million. That's got to be an ego thing, but.
Well, he definitely has he definitely has some things going on. You don't wear a different pair of spikes and a different glove and that every single night without having some form of an ego going on. But listen, there's a lot of Major League Baseball players with egos. Sometimes people show it a little bit differently.
Yep.
And I think that to become a 1%er or a less than 1%er and play at the major league level, you're definitely going to have some form of an ego. And hopefully you go out there and you back it up after that too, So he's still got a long ways to go in this contract, and I'm rooting for him because I'm a Mets fan and I want to see him do well and I want to see the organization do well. I'd like to see a little less of a big swing left-handed, a little less strikeouts left-handed, and let's raise that batting average a little bit more. I'm sure he'd love to too. But
yeah, of course.
Not that easy.
Let me be clear. I'm a Francisco Lindor fan. I have been since the minute he signed on the dotted line. I've never been, as they say, a Francisco Lindor hater. I don't care about his contract. I mean, in terms of length, that's where I come in, but money, It's not my money, and Steve Cohen doesn't give a fuck, He just doesn't. Money's nothing to him. We've seen that. So, length of years is where fans could, get into that. But money, it's not our money. Steve's got it. It's his money.
I agree.
Where I come in with Lindor is I think he is a leader. Like you said, top of the dugout. I remember in 2021, his first year, where his contract didn't even start, he was always the last one into the dugout when they were walking back into the dugout.
I see him doing the same thing, giving little high fives and that coming off the field. There's
high five, right? Always the last one, right?
That's not fake. That's not fake.
It's exactly, and so the little things, and a guy like you that has been on the field more than 90, probably 100% of, or 99.9% of the people watching, listening right now, those little subtle things you pick up on,
Absolutely.
So I do think he's a leader in a subtle way. I do think he has an ego, but he's not overly flashy about it. He backs it up because he's as smooth as hell at shortstop. He should be winning gold gloves. And he hasn't as a Met yet, but he will. But yeah.
And he gives everything he has. He gives everything he's got. He doesn't lollygag. He's not lazy. I get on him sometimes, I'm not going to lie, but I think like he has his flash, and that's just the way the game is now. And you can't bag on him because he doesn't run to first base or he doesn't dive for a ball in the hole. He'll dive for a ball that you see some guys that won't dive for, even though he knows he doesn't have a chance for it. And as a former pitcher, that lets you know that this guy's got my back at least. Even if he knew he wasn't going to get it, he's going to lay out and he's going to show you, hey man, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a shot for you. So you got to respect that.
He plays every damn day. When he had that side pain that he sat out, the one game he missed this year, it broke his streak that led. I don't know if it was an all-time Mets streak. I believe 255 consecutive games of playing every day.
He had a baby this year, right? His wife had a baby, and he was out there playing.
He came in as a pinch hitter. He plays every game, and so does Pete. And Pete obviously has just had stints on the IL because of broken this and that. But even Lindor broke his finger. What was it at a hotel in San Diego
Yeah.
or something? And he, I believe, just missed one game. But
Yep.
he plays every game. He's a gamer. You want that from a
Absolutely.
guy who, is paid all that money and all that we just talked about. But here are the stats because you can't dispute facts. We talk about batting average. I'll just read this. Only 4 players have posted the following numbers since 2019. Remember, he signed with the Mets in 21. 100 plus doubles, 100 plus home runs, and 70 stolen bases. Okay? 4 players. So 3 other than Lindor. Here's the list. Shohei Ohtani, Jose Ramirez, Ronald Acuna Jr., Francisco Lindor. That's it.
Well, that puts him right up there in that superstar echelon that you were talking about. Those
It
are great
does.
numbers. And especially in this day and age where they tell you that batting average doesn't matter, those would be numbers that the analytics staff would tell you do matter. So
Right.
you got to say he's doing it. He's doing it according to today's baseball, and makes me wonder if that is his approach. Which maybe he's bought into the new way of playing the game and the new analytics, and he's willing to have those strikeouts and a few too many strikeouts and a lower batting average to be in that group of names that you just named.
Yeah, I mean, those names they speak for themselves. And
Yep.
last year in 2022, he had the best season ever as a shortstop. Like in terms of Jose Reyes had it, just in terms of, I believe it was RBIs, home runs, whatever it might be. Lindor in 2022, still when people hate on him, he had the best season ever.
He had a very good year. He had a very good year
Right.
last year for sure.
In Mets history, it was the best year as a shortstop. So, you take it for what it's worth. And just to finish on the superstar, and the stats don't lie, as of Monday, August 21st, Lindor moved in to the top 5 in WAR. Now, some people don't care about WAR, and a lot of people do. WAR is just a stat, a wins above replacement, and it encompasses not just offense, but defense as well. Here's the list. Top 5 in order in 2023. Shohei Ohtani, 8.5. Big surprise, right? Mookie Betts, big drop off here, 6.4. But then it's a little crowded. Ronald Acuna Jr., 6.2. Freddie Freeman, 6. Lindor, 5. And he is now number 5. So he is in the top 5 in WAR, which you could say top 5 in MVP. I don't equate it like that, but the point is the numbers don't lie. He's having another good year.
He is. Let's just get him to 285. Can we get him to 285? And then he'll definitely be the best shortstop in the game.
If you remember, I think it was the beginning of June, he was hitting 208. And people were like, or a little maybe before, he was right around the Mendoza line. And it's like, okay, this is
for quite a while. He was.
Right. He
What's
never
his
got
batting
under.
average right now, Casey?
I got to look it up, but I know. I actually know it. He's above 250 now.
Is he?
So
okay. All right.
Yeah, he is. He is around 255 is the last one I remember. He's raised his average 40 points, and that's hard to do later in the season.
You got to give credit where credit is due.
Why in the world, when the Mets are basically not making the playoffs and they're not retaining Carlos Carrasco, he's on the end of his career, and we love Carlos as a player and as a person, but why in the world is Joey Lucchesi not pitching every 5th day in place of Carlos Carrasco, where, again, I love the guy, but he's horrible. He has a 6.42 ERA. That is the worst ERA in 19. If you have 19 starts, you're booked in any Mets career as a starting pitcher. Worst, the worst, worse than Jason Vargas, who I believe it was 2018 or 19. We all remember how bad he was, and everybody ripped on Vargas. Carlos Carrasco is worse. And now you have a young lefty who has shown you that he has pitched well. And see what you got with him. What in the world am I missing here, Bill?
I took a moment to think about this when you sent over what we were going to speak about. And this is what I think, and I could be wrong. But like you said, they still have him under control, right? For next year, Lucchese. All right.
Yep.
Coming off of Tommy John surgery, coming off of a knee injury. The team is quote unquote out of it, even though they're not out of it. And we know that. We talked about that earlier on. My thought is maybe they want to work him back into that 100%, 100 pitch situation. Maybe they don't feel like he's quite there yet. And with the team, quote unquote, being out of it, but not out of it, don't want to overdo it with him right now, knowing that they have an opportunity to see him pitch again next year, hopefully completely out of the underneath the Tommy John issue, completely healthy again. Why try to risk the chance of injury again if he's not what they feel he's up to 100 pitches every 5 days at the major league level, injuring himself again if they're not in it. We know that they're still in it a little bit here, but that's kind of the only thing I could come up with is we don't want to overdo it with him right now, knowing that next year when we made the trades, the team made the trades, they were kind of waving the white flag, like you say, that let's get him ready, really, really ready for next year and not have to overexert him this year, feeling that the team's not going to make it into the playoffs. And that's pretty much all I can come up with that. I hope for, I would like to have seen him around, the last 2 years, but unfortunately injury has kept him away a little bit. Having a guy like Quintana back as well is something that I feel like those guys can kind of vibe off of each other a little bit. And
perfect. Yeah.
Well, it's not over
reason.
yet. We haven't even made it to September yet. Maybe in September he does get up here and he gets the ball once every 5 days the rest of the season. The only thing I can think of, like I said, is they probably don't feel like he's up to 100 pitches at the major league level yet, and they want to get him there before they get him out there every 5 days, knowing that, like you said, Carlos is probably going to be gone, being that his contract is up and he's a free agent, and they have Lucchese under control. Let's try to keep this controlled as much as possible to try to get him all the way back to full health to see what he really can do, because he hasn't had that opportunity yet since he's became a Met. So that's basically what I've got on that, and I think that it makes some sense. Obviously, it's frustrating when you're putting a pitcher out there that's struggling, when you feel like there might be somebody better out there. But I would think that there's a rhyme and reason to it, and it's not just because they want to hold him back. I'm sure he's not happy about it either, but I'm sure they have a reasoning.
Of course. Yeah, I feel like with your answer, you're a little dumbfounded as well, because, you're like, I guess it's the only thing I could think of. And it does make sense of what you're saying. But where I come from, and I'm not disagreeing, because you can't disagree with that assessment. He is coming off injuries, and totally, a good assessment. This would be the time to see what you have. It's not like Carlos is giving you those innings anyway. So even if Lucchese's not throwing 100 pitches, he just threw. He just threw 80.
Say, and I forgot to make this point too. This was part of that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Is the amount of wear and tear that the bullpen has had to take this year, with the fact that the starting pitchers had a hard time getting through 5 innings, let alone 6 innings, a lot of the season. Carlos can still go out there and give you a 6 or 7 inning outing. I know it hasn't been, they've been fewer and farther between this year than last year, where going into the game with Lucchese right now, you're hoping for 5, maybe 6 where he's at. And the bullpen has already been stretched this year. So that was another thing that I was going to point out that I forgot, that maybe that's part of the reasoning as well, is you don't want to stretch the bullpen any more than they already have been, knowing that you're going to have a guy that you're trying to build up his pitch count and his arm strength. So that's something.
That's
something
true.
I think that might be a factor as well.
And you're right. It's not September yet.
Give it a couple weeks.
If it keeps happening with Carlos,
give it a couple weeks.
Give it a couple
weeks and see what happens.
If it keeps happening with Carlos, where he's out in the 3rd inning and he's giving you nothing, and they got to get to the bullpen in the 3rd, 4th inning, then this is where you bring up Lucchese. If the games don't quote unquote matter as much because they're quote unquote out of it or whatever, this is like McGill and Peterson. They're giving them all the opportunities in the world to see what they have. It's an audition for next year. So I feel like, and you made your point, and I agree with the injuries, But this would be the time, just like Miguel and Peterson, give Luke Casey his shot. He has pitched actually better than Peterson
I
and
think it's
McGill.
coming. I think it's coming. I think that they probably have a little bit of a plan, and
I hope
I would
so.
think by September he's probably getting the ball once every 5 days, unless Carrasco has a complete turnaround. Which look, everybody in their career gets to a point to where it gets that much harder to get outs, and maybe he's there right now. But I think it's coming. I think Lucchesi will get a chance to make a consecutive run of starts before this year is over.
I hope so
too.
I really do. And it doesn't mean get rid of Carlos Carrasco. Move him to
Right.
the bullpen. They're not going to DFA Carlos Carrasco. The bullpen. Mop-up guy or whatever. We'll see what pans out, but I agree. Lucchesi probably every 5th day come
so
September.
too.
But we'll wait on that. So let's move on. We got some fan mail for Bill Pulsifer. Every week on Shay_hello on Twitter, we ask followers to ask Bill questions that he will answer here on the podcast. So we have a few in. We'll read a couple of them, and let's fire them away.
Yes, sir.
You ready, Bill? All right. First question, Bill, from Mason. Hey, Bill, do you remember your first MLB start? Can you take us through that day and what it was like and everything that went with it?
Yes, I obviously will never forget my first start in the major leagues. I was the number one prospect at the time with the organization, so they did things a little bit differently than you see most of the time with the major league debut. I was brought up 2 days before, and was able to be around Shea for 2 days before I actually had to start. It was a Saturday day game, very hot in June, the day before Father's Day. Gave up 5 runs in the first inning. And
who'd you
Houston
play?
Astros.
Who was it against?
Houston Astros. Doug Drabeck pitched for the Astros. My first pitch.
What year was this?
1995. Yeah. My first pitch was a fastball that cut about 3.5 feet. Went by Todd Hundley's glove to the backstop. Had 2 balls hit in either gap, right center and left center gap, that Brett Butler just couldn't quite get to. And he apologized to me, and it was a crazy story. I hadn't seen him for over 15 years, and I saw him in St. Lucie after 15 years. And the first thing he said to me was, "Man, I should have caught those 2 balls in that first inning." So I thought that was always pretty cool of Bugsy to remember. He remembered my first start in the big leagues too. But it was obviously dream come true, playing for your favorite team, standing on the same mound as your favorite player of all time, and Doc Gooden, and knowing that Nolan Ryan and Tom Seaver and just numerous guys that you admired as pitchers stood on that same mound. I lost the game, gave up 7 runs, but I went 7 innings, and I threw 131 pitches, which is something that will never happen again in a major league debut. I would bet my life on it. So I lost the game, but I kind of felt like I came out as a winner on that day, because, like I said, it would have been easy for them to take me out in the first inning, let alone let me finish it and then go on to throw another 6 innings after that. But first strikeout was a Hall of Famer in Jeff Bagwell, and first home run, Hall of Famer in Craig Biggio. So it was obviously a dream come true, like I said, and a day that I will never forget.
Yeah, you faced some good hitters in that lineup, the 2 Hall of Famers right there. So, 5 runs in the first inning. A lot of managers, I don't know how long they would keep that leash, the long leash.
I've always thought that maybe Dallas Green thought that more harm would be done by taking me out without getting out of the first inning in my first start in the major leagues, and by leaving me in. Now, obviously, my elbow didn't make it through the rest of the season, and I ended up injuring myself, probably due to the fact of the amount of pitches and innings that I had thrown prior to that, unfortunately. But it was a different time and a different era, And obviously, my elbow, I've always said my elbow has a lot to do with the way that the game is conducted now when it comes to how pitchers are taken care of or not taken care of, whatever you want to call it. Because I know there's an argument of they don't throw enough, this, that, and the other thing. But I think I obviously probably threw too much. I always use Nolan Ryan as a barometer, and obviously I'm no Nolan Ryan. But he didn't throw 200 innings till he was 25 years old, and I did it twice by the time I was 21. So I think things, the game definitely changed after I came through, and the rest of the Generation K guys came through.
Always changing, still
It
to
never
this
stays
day.
the same.
But just going back to your first start, if you went 7 innings, Dallas stayed with you. So you only gave up 2 runs in 6 innings after. So it actually it was a good move by Dallas, and obviously helped your confidence, because look at you all these years later. You came out with I guess that would be a 9 ERA, 7 innings, 7 runs, and the L, but you came out feeling like a winner because you pulled yourself together, and you gave up only 2 in 6 after a horrible start. Good on you.
Sir.
Good on Dallas.
Thank you.
Let's continue. I got a question for you about my Yeti here. You always see me drinking. It's actually, I am remiss that I didn't bring it up last episode. Obviously, if you're watching here on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, it's a customized Yeti that has the Mets symbol engraved on it and my name. So if people can't see it and see me drinking water from it, and that's what it is. Last episode was coffee, a little tired, but it's Mets related.
I see
if you can see it, Mets symbol and my name right here. So just wanted to get that out of the way.
I like it.
There you go. And that wasn't fan mail. I just needed to get that in there.
I've been noticing it throughout the podcast. I like it.
Yeah, well, it's Met related, and is actually, I got it as a birthday gift, and it might be the best birthday gift I ever got, because Met related, engraved, and I use it a lot.
Can't beat
Coffee, that. Take it wherever you want to
Keep
go.
It hot, keep
warm,
it cold.
stays
It does it all, right?
Yep. Let's get to one more fan question. It's from NYMGI. He goes, for Bill. You played with a couple of guys known for not having the best personalities. How were Bobby Bonilla and Jeff Kent as teammates?
Behind closed doors, Bobby Bonilla was a great teammate. Bobby Bo obviously was a little prickly with the media and with fans sometimes, but if you were one of those 25 guys in that clubhouse, Bobby Bo treated everybody very well. I enjoyed playing with Bobby Bonilla. Big man, a huge man, just swung a huge bat, just a big dude. Somebody you would want on your side if you ever got into an altercation, a physical altercation. Jeff was difficult, and I was young and cocky and brash, and Jeff was a little more of a veteran player and not as boisterous as I was. And Jeff, I'll say this, Jeff always played hard behind me whenever I was on the mound, but I don't think Jeff and I were the best of friends. Obviously, he was a little prickly. He had his issues down the line in other organizations as well, but I can't take anything away from Jeff Kent as a baseball player. He's probably borderline Hall of Fame baseball player as a second baseman, but a little bit different than I would say Bobby Bo was when it came to dealing with teammates.
Okay. I have a question now that that follower, and thank you for the questions, guys. I was wondering about this. So Todd Hundley, you said that he was your catcher opening day for your first start. Then you played, with him for a lot of games. I have a friend that is my best friend going back to way back when I was a young kid. I won't put her name out there, of course. She might be listening when this airs, but she was the president of the Todd Hundley fan club, and that will give it away. Some people now might know the name and the face, but I'm not going to air her name here. But I guess my question is, and there's a little more to it before the question, when Piazza came, he had to basically take over for Todd Hundley, who was a fan favorite. You know, he was loved by the fans, and you know his numbers backed it up. A switch hitting catcher, home run hitter, had the Mets record, 40 home runs, I believe, in '96 until Piazza broke it. So, you know, I always liked Todd. I met him a bunch of times through my friend. So my question to you, as being a teammate with Todd, what were your impressions with Todd?
Todd and I lived in St. Lucie in the off season, and this was prior to me even playing in the major leagues, and he was already on the ball club. Todd was a very good friend of mine. We've kind of fallen apart, not by any reason, just due to time and distance. But Todd was a great time. Todd would, he was a lot of fun, maybe too much fun sometimes, but Todd and I got along great. We spent a lot of time together in the off season. One being up at the field because we used to go in the wintertime, Monday through Saturday. We would be up at the field at 9:00 in the morning and working out at the minor league complex. Right. And then I would be at his house at the pool, with his family and for drinks and dinner. And Todd was a great teammate, and I enjoyed the hell out of playing with Todd Hundley.
Yeah, no, everything I've heard about Todd is, good things. So, that's why my friend was the president of.
Todd was a lot of fun. Ahead. Todd was fun. He was a good teammate and a lot of fun to hang out with.
And good for him. Only because back in, what was it? He had Tommy John surgery, or was it his shoulder in 96, 97?
Yep.
Right. He went through a lot there with Tommy John, and Piazza was traded to the Mets in May in '98, and he was put in a tough situation. He went from fan favorite to being out of the equation, being hurt, to being essentially replaced by, at that time, the best catcher in baseball.
Wrigley Field, and what was that? I guess it had to have been '98. Then I was getting ready down in the bullpen, pretending like I was getting ready to go into the game to pitch, when I was actually just going to get my arm loose to possibly go play in the outfield to replace Todd in left field, because he was having some struggles out in the outfield late in the game. I did end up actually getting in the game as a pinch runner the one time that I played in a major league game other than being a pitcher. But Bobby Valentine told me to go down and get your arm loose. You might be going in to play left field to replace Todd. Because Todd was, he had been moved from behind the plate and was coming back off of the elbow injury, and they were trying him out in the outfield a little bit.
I remember that very well. Left field did not work out well for Todd, but you got to give him kudos for trying.
Yep, absolutely.
Being a catcher, but I do remember. I think, was it against Houston? Piazza and Hundley hit back-to-back home runs or in the same inning. It was just a good feel moment for, probably both of them, and more, for fans. And I remember it was a big game. And obviously Todd didn't last long after that. Mike's got re-signed, and we all know what happened there. But Todd went on to play for the Cubs and made a lot of money.
The Cubs, and then he went on to play with the Dodgers as well.
Yeah, he made a good amount of money after the Mets, and he was a good Met, so good on him. So let's move into our segment where we like to call Quick Hits for Bill. We did it last episode. Just going to fire off a couple quick questions to you pertaining to anything. Just whatever you got on your mind, go with it.
All right, sounds good.
We'll just do a couple. Bill Pulsifer, favorite
Having
food?
It tonight, spaghetti and meatballs. Oh, yeah.
Delicious.
My wife makes it.
Favorite movie?
Go ahead. My wife makes a mean meatball, so I'm having spaghetti and meatballs tonight, actually. So I'm looking forward to, in about the next 10 to 15 minutes, having some spaghetti and meatballs.
We won't keep you then, and I'm jealous. Favorite movie?
Can I give you 3?
Of course.
I'll give you 2. Let's go Scarface and Goodfellas.
Those are 2 classics. Yeah. I would put them in my top 10.
I mean, I could sit here and probably pluck off a few other ones, but those are right up there, Scarface and Goodfellas.
Yeah,
Godfather 2 over
those are
Godfather
classics.
2 over Godfather over the Godfather.
No, we would need a whole different podcast episode for that kind of controversy, but we won't go there right now. Great movies, of course, both. But yeah, that could be a 40-minute
Easily.
conversation.
Okay.
Last one. Favorite music artist
Smashing
or band?
Pumpkins and Wu-Tang Clan.
That is two different.
That's right.
I like the variety there. Okay, that's two different genres of music, or
Hey, good music is good music.
Wu-Tang.
Good music is good music. It could be anything other than country. But I think there's good music all over the world, and even inside of our country, there's good music. And I enjoyed hip hop, and I enjoyed alternative rock music. I'm a '90s guy. Was coming of age, becoming a man in the '90s, and those were my two favorites, and they still to this day. I don't think that anybody does it like the Wu-Tang Clan did, and I don't think anybody does it or has done it since like the Smashing Pumpkins. And I got a chance to. Me and Billy Corgan, the lead singer of the Pumpkins, were close for a while, and my wife's still in contact with him through social media, and done the backstage thing and all that. Met the Wu-Tang guys backstage at Lollapalooza
awesome.
years ago. But yeah, those are my two.
That's awesome about meeting and having contact with your
one
two
thing
favorite
about
bands
musicians and athletes is a lot of athletes wanted to be musicians, and a lot of musicians want to be athletes. So we always kind of have something in common. And I've got to meet a lot of superstars in the music industry because of being a Major League Baseball player. And in the '90s, there was a guy, Peter Mensch, who was a manager of a lot of the biggest, the tops of the tops. So, and he was a huge Mets fan, and
right.
he would take care of us, and we would take care of him. And so I got to meet quite a few superstars in the music industry.
Do you remember, since it sounds like you're a big music fan, did you have a walkout song when you would come out to start?
My first song ever was "Come As You Are," Nirvana. And then I changed it to "Even in His Youth" by Nirvana. And I remember my first hit, I hit a double over Dante Bichette's head at Shea Stadium, and they started blaring it on the speakers. And I was told later on that Wilpon was like, "Don't ever play that song again." But over the years, I had plenty of them. "Fortunate Son" was one of mine. "All Along the Watchtower" was one of mine. But I actually picked Jason Isringhausen's first because he couldn't think of one, and he came out to "One" by Metallica. But yeah, I was always a big music guy, and like to have something. I always felt like I couldn't do the hip hop for a reason, just because I don't know if it was a white and black thing or that, but I was obviously always a big hip hop guy. That's a funny story. When I was a rookie in the big leagues, we had the Bose music system in that Hunley, actually, it was Hunley's. And on the plane, they would play, Franco was playing Billy Joel, and, they would play the Gap Band and all this stuff, and they were all older than me. And I had one song, and my one song that I got to play all the time was always "Shook Ones" by Mobb Deep. And Bobby Jones used to bust my chops about that. But always loved the music, always.
Well, times have changed. A lot of guys now are coming out to whatever they want, regardless of it's hip hop, rap. But I can tell just by this conversation you're a big music guy. So that's cool to know. Nirvana.
Yeah, "Come As You Are" was the first one. "Come As You Are."
Yeah,
I like that to this day.
like that.
"Come As You Are."
Yeah, I feel like it never loses. You play that song for life. It's just it never gets old when you love a song or a band like that so much. So, well, that will conclude on our Nirvana and music talk of the Say Hello podcast. Another episode of the Say Hello podcast. I want to thank our producer, Stephen White, behind the scenes. He's been behind the scenes for all of our episodes, and I would be remiss if I did not mention him, and I will going forward. Does a lot of hard work for us. So thank you, Stephen, behind the scenes. as our producer. Once again, we are on all platforms. You are watching on YouTube. It's at Shay Hello Media. Please subscribe. All you got to do is type in at Shay Hello Media. Hit that subscribe button. And if you like Bill and I's content here, and go from there. We're also on Apple and Spotify platforms as well under Shay Hello Podcast. Like us, give us a rating, a comment, drop it, whatever you want. And of course, follow us there as well. And last but not least, of course, thank you, Bill. Another fun episode here. Always a blast talking baseball with you, talking Mets, talking traffic, talking Nirvana.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate it, man. I enjoyed it too.
Like me as well. So until next time, I want to thank everybody once again and have a great rest of your day, everybody.